كن سعيدا كن فريدا عش بفخر في الحياة لا تبالي فالمعالي بالتحدي لا سواه.
Salam alaikum everyone, this is episode 4 of UmmahSpeaks. Today, me and Wania are going to talk about the fear of missing out. And, I feel like, first of all, the transition from high school to university is a big transition, and I feel like a lot of us might feel like we need to fit in more, especially that the environment changes and stuff like that. But specifically, since we're moving into what Western is known as a party school.
Western is known as a party school, so the transition itself, as you mentioned, from high school to university, it's already such a big jump. You come here, you see people doing things that normally as a Muslim, it's not accepted for you to do, it's not allowed for you to do. But when you're coming to a school with such a huge environment of that, the pressure just adds on so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that that's where the fear of missing out, because you see all these stuff around you that happen and you're like, wait, am I missing out on this?
Yeah.
Or should I be doing this? I think where it starts is, for me, first of all, I'm an off-campus student. So I feel like when I chose to become off-campus, a lot of people told me, don't, because you're going to miss out on the university experience. And then what I got to learn is more that university experience, they mean parties at dorms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I felt like I wasn't in the picture, maybe. That's what the fear of what if these people are making friends throughout these parties and stuff like that. I think I'll talk about it later, how I felt like I wasn't missing out on much after I realized what
it is you're quote-unquote missing out on. Because I feel like these things, they've become so normalized, especially in the Western culture, that if you don't, you come to university, you don't party, you don't drink, what is your life? What do you do?
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention how, this fear of missing out or trying to fit in doesn't only come with partying and drinking. There's so many different types, and we're going to talk about all of them today. And I talked a little bit about being an off-campus student, but you're an on-campus student.
Yeah, I'm an on-campus student, so definitely, I feel like if you're an off-campus student, the pressure, I feel like some of it is kind of minimalized out like that because you're not in the environment itself. I feel like when you're in the environment where things are going on around you, you feel kind of more tempted to go towards them.
Yeah, okay, I see
so
that.
I feel like for you that's kind of a protection in itself. And of course it's hard because you're missing out on things like that, but that in itself is a protection.
That's true. I feel like when I'm in my own apartment, I don't have to constantly be reminded that people are partying beside me because I don't hear them. You don't hear them, but you do.
Here every weekend. I go home on most weekends, but the weekends I stay, you can definitely hear it gets really loud on weekends. Yeah. The way that people meet each other normally in university, how you quote unquote make friends, even during O week and stuff, you'd go out to a concert and be
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I remember you from this concert. I remember you from here. We danced together here. We drank together here.
Yeah.
That in itself, that first, impression that you're getting off of that person that you're meeting.
Yeah.
Do you want to be friends with someone you met through something like that?
Yeah, I do understand, but also you just feel like you're missing out about when making friends. I feel like university has a huge social aspect to it, and you all want to have your own group. And I feel like when you, as a Muslim, sometimes you just go home at night, okay, and then after that's when they have certain experiences, shared experiences, so you feel like you're missing out on that. And a great point that you've mentioned is that when you meet people through these settings, it really defines how the rest of your relationship is going to be with them. 100%. Because when you're in a party setting, there is no discipline because you're doing whatever you desire, and you're not being held accountable and stuff like that. And that says a lot about, let's say, the person or how the relationship is going to be and stuff like that. So you are kind of avoiding that. So don't feel like you're missing out on having friends, because these friends are not the friends for you. I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I think let's talk about how I know I'm not saying not to have non-Muslim friends. I have a lot of non-Muslim friends, and they're my closest friends too. But if you're in a setting where people are constantly hey, let's go party, let's go, or you are in the setting, so you'd say, oh, I'm going to go to the party, but I'm not going to drink, or I'm going to go to the party, but I'm not going to do this or that. It's just physically draining. It honestly is. You just feel exhausted.
Being in a setting where people don't respect I'm not going to say they don't respect your limits, but people are drinking around you, people are dancing around you, you yourself, you just start to feel kind of drained as a Muslim.
Yeah.
Because you're like, what am I here for? Like, what am I gaining out of this? Absolutely nothing.
And you do feel more tempted to do haram. Although I feel like a lot of people get into wrong by this mindset. You're like, I'm going to go there, but I'm not going to do anything. But then once you're there, you know, the shaitan does its thing and you're like, oh, let me just try this. Let me do this. Let me stay out for a bit more.
Yeah, I feel like I mentioned that in an earlier episode too, where like, you know, you don't just reach the line. You don't just like walk up one day and be like, okay, today I'm going to start drinking.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a step-by-step process. You know, one day you hear your friends are going somewhere.
Yeah.
The next day you want to go with them.
Yeah.
The next day it's something else. And then it builds up, you know?
Yeah. And I think also Iman wavers, and that's something we have also discussed. Like, your Iman is not perfect all the time. Sometimes you feel, you know, more strong as a Muslim. Sometimes your Iman is less. So be careful of that. You're human at the end of the day. So I think just preventing yourself from being in environments like this in the first place, you're going to save yourself so much energy. And I think, as I said, the feeling of missing out, but what are you really missing out from? Personally, I haven't been in many settings. You know, this is my first semester, first year, and alhamdulillah, like, I've been avoiding everything. But I've heard from my friends some really, really terrible stories of being around drunk people. I think, honestly, ask friends around you. Like, being the only sober person around drunk people, you just see way too many things that you do not want to be experiencing. Some people, when they're drunk, they get aggressive, or they get touchy, or they get, you know, because they're not in their, they're out of, they're not in their, how do you say that? Like, they're not in
the right state of mind.
Yes, they're not in control of all of their actions. And it just creates weird situations. And I remember, like, the first time I had a conversation with one of my friends who lives on res and is in a party like res. They're like, it's not that you're not missing out on anything. Like, I have had to see someone like vomiting and them choking on their own vomit, and
it's like, literally, what are you missing out on? That you're missing out on that. You're missing out on hangovers. You're missing out on, you know, people losing their own sense of consciousness or whatever. Like, there's a reason that these things are made haram.
Yeah, that's the first thing my friends told me. They're like, after we came here, like, they might have came from, like, you know, non-Muslim countries, and they came here, and they're like, when I came here, I knew that drinking is haram, but now, even if drinking was not haram, I wouldn't do it, because losing control of yourself is, like, that's so scary, honestly, because you don't know where you wake up and where you find yourself. And that's what I was saying, like, even as a sober person, let's say, okay, but I'm not drinking, but you will see things and witness things that traumatize you. Again, one of my friends, like, had to literally revive someone on the spot because of how much alcohol intake they've had. And I just don't think you should be in that setting,
and on top
honestly.
of that, what's even more scary than that is you never know, like, as a human, where your last breaths are going to be, where you're going to pass away. So would you want it to be in, not even if you're, like, not doing those things, would you want it to be in that setting,
in that environment?
And
I think, like a saying that we have is, like, you, like, your friend, like, basically takes you wherever they are. Yeah, so it just means that, you know, you might say, hey, like, they're my friends, like, that's fine, but at least surround yourself with people that have the same values in you, and that value, you know, being present in the moment, you know, having control of yourself. I feel like a lot of these desires, we look at them in the short term, and I just want to say that's a very normal humanistic way of looking at things. You look at this, you're like, okay, I'm gonna have a fun time right now, I'm gonna hang out with my friends, but on the long term, you're not only damaging your liver and poisoning yourself and losing, you know, control of yourself. Like, it's so much more. We do need to talk about alcoholism. Like, you know, that's a thing, and people can get addicted, and or even doing drugs and stuff like that. It's really, sometimes it's not it's one time. I'll do it one time. I'll do it one time.
It's like for skipping lectures as well, honestly. Like, you'd be like, I'm going to skip this lecture one time. It's going to turn to 2 times. And, like, the same thing, like, same concept. I'm not saying, like, that's, you know, anything close to this. But, you know, you're going to drink one time. That's going to turn to 2 times. It's going to turn to 3 times. It's going to become a habit.
Absolutely. And not only a habit, but addiction is a real thing. And if anyone knows people who have addictions around them or have seen that in their life, they would understand that this is not a, you know, fun thing to do on a Friday. This can alter your life course forever. And it's just important for you to think about that. And as you've said, things are haram for a reason. And I think even, like, throughout the years, things are haram for a reason. God tells us to do things for a reason. We might not know that reason, but once we, like, I feel like it's like Allah made this life and He made the manual for that life. You might not know everything about the game, so sometimes things don't make sense to you, but they will at the end of the day. But like right now, we do have science that backs up everything. Like a long time ago, they didn't know probably that drinking gives you cancer or
liver damage or whatever.
Liver damage doesn't give you cancer; it gives you liver damage. But like they wouldn't know these like scientific stuff, but now we know. And like, for example, praying 5 times a day, we wouldn't know how would that help us, but now with science, like the more we learn about life, we know how meditation helps your mindset, how being grounded, putting your face on the ground, or like being grounded in where you are, doing something habitually like 5 times a day, these stuff just make you a better person. So you might not know why, but now we absolutely know why it's haram. But it's important to have trust in Allah, because He made this life, He made this, and He knows
Islam is literally like it's literally like a cheat code to life, honestly. Like you stay away from the things that have been forbidden, you do the things that you've been told are good, even if you don't know why. God knows why, and like the reasoning behind that, even if we haven't figured it all out, like it's there.
And the reasoning's there. Like, you could obviously see it. Again, like, as I told you, like, when you see people around you who are like, I wouldn't do this because it's haram, but even if it wasn't haram, I wouldn't do this. You were like, that's the thing about life. You don't have to go through a bad experience to learn. Humanity, the way we've evolved is that we've learned from previous mistakes. It's so dumb of us to just keep doing the same mistakes. Like, let's say fire burns you. I don't have to put my hand in the fire to know it burns me. I know I've seen someone burn their hand by putting their hand in the fire. So you don't have to ruin your life in shambles to learn this lesson.
I feel like that's something we ignore, though. Like, when our desires in the moment are just so strong. It's just something we just want to do. Like, we don't think about anything that's going to happen afterwards. We just do it. And I feel like once we do it, then the regret starts to kick in. Then like everything starts to like feel like it's falling apart or whatever.
And I just want to say, this is not a shaming episode, and we're going to talk about that later on. This is an episode of people being vulnerable, and it's important to be, again, we talked about this, knowing that what you're doing is wrong, or wanting to become better is the most important part of it. So it's not like, oh, if you do these things, there's no way for you to come back and you're already so far gone. That's the way the shaitan makes you think. If at any point of your life you do something wrong and you're like, oh, Allah will never forgive me, or I'll never go back to the person I was, that's just literally the way of the shaitan to make you go down that hill. It's always time. There's always time for you to become better.
As long as the angel of death isn't here for you, there's time.
You're good. You're good. You could repent anytime.
So another thing we want to get into with the fear of missing out and stuff is peer pressure. And I feel like peer pressure is something that can come in a lot of different forms, especially I when you're surrounded by like these kinds of environments.
I think it's important, when I hear peer pressure, it's like I imagine a bully like hitting someone, like, if you don't do this, I'm gonna hit you or something. But that's not truly how peer pressure works. It's important for us to know what the different types of peer pressure are, so you can recognize them. And they're usually really subtle too, and you don't realize them, but then at the end of the day you're like, damn, I felt pressured to do this, although no one actually like got a stick and was like, if you don't do this, I'll get you.
So like I feel like one of the main things that people say...
Just 1 minute, can you just please scroll? I'm sorry, because
So we'll start with the first one.
So start.
So I feel like one thing that a lot of people tend to say when you come in university environments is, oh, how are you going to make friends if you don't do this? How are you going to make friends if you don't drink? How are you going to make friends if you don't party? Like, how are you going to get to know people? And I feel like, when you're getting to know people in uni, you're trying to find your right group of friends. How are you even going to find your right group of friends if you're looking for them in environments where people are drinking, dancing, whatever,
That's
so on? As a Muslim, as a Muslim, the kind of friends you want to make, because like, as you said earlier, as-sahib as-sahib, your friends pull you. So you want to be like, you don't want to start off with a group of friends that are going to like pull you down that road. You want to start off somewhere that's going to like keep you up, keep your Iman up.
Absolutely. And I feel like honestly the best of friends that I've made through university have been friends who I've met through like common interests, and that's why clubs are here for at university. Like, for example, the MSA, the ASA. There's this like little club I go to where the girls crochet there, and I found people because I know that they have this common interest, so that means that we can sit together and talk about something that we enjoy. And I feel like that's not like when people start pressuring you this way, just know that people that you're going to meet in these settings are not people you want to be with anyways, you know? And I feel like another way is the, come on, just 1 minute, come on, just one night, just like this, just come on, like it's for a little bit and then you can just go home. And it's not like that. I feel like one time leads to another time, and what if this one time is the time you get traumatized or something happens to you?
What if something horrible happens during this one time? What if it's like your last night this one time?
Yeah, I feel like some people might think of this as like the crazy way to think about life, but that's how, like, being a Muslim is doing every step of your day, knowing that if Allah takes my soul at any point, I'm gonna be like very content with myself, and content with the life I've lived.
I feel like a lot of people tend to forget that, like a lot of people tend to think of death as something like, it's such a far away concept. I'm gonna die in my 60s, my 50s.
Yeah.
Honestly, I could die in like 3 seconds. No one can say anything.
Yeah, that's true. It's important to remember that. And again, the 1 time, 1 minute, it's important to stand your ground. When someone starts, hey, one time, you need to be like, hey, I do not appreciate that. Please don't do that again. I already said 1 time, no. And I feel like if you're around people who don't understand the meaning of no, run away.
Yeah. Because those are not the kind of people you want to be around.
Absolutely not.
Another form in which peer pressure can come is like, oh, you think, all my friends went out to do this. I can't because I have to sit here because I'm Muslim, so I'm missing out on this. Yeah. All my friends went there, I can't go there. All my friends are having fun doing that, I can't do that.
And you feel like you're losing your friends, which is a thing that happens. Because your friends start going out to these places or parties or whatever, you're not there with them anymore. So that means that you're being excluded out of this group. And like, I'm not going to say you're not going to lose friends if you don't do that. You will. And if it happens, just know that if you leave something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will give you something 100 times better.
Yeah, and I feel like once you're like doing things that are right for you as a Muslim, people, they start to filter themselves out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you stop going to places, stop talking to certain people in certain environments.
Yeah.
Like, it starts to filter itself out, and you're left, and then God will, as you said, always replace that with something that was better for you. Even like, it's literally unimaginable like where those things would come from.
Absolutely. And I think the shaitan, like the way he control people is by fear. The fear of literally, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to lose all your friends, you're going to be lonely and no one's going to talk to you, and then you're just going to live alone. And people are scared of being alone, but that's not true. That's how shaitan keeps you in situations where you don't want to be in, because if you leave right now, that means
then there's
you're
no
going to
way
be
back.
alone,
you can't come back. Yeah,
which is not true. There are so many people in the world. You'll find your people. And again, the belief, and we talked about this in a previous episode, how the faith, how strong faith can get you through anything in life. When you leave something for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, having 1,000% faith that Allah will replace me with something better is enough sometimes to let you go and keep moving on. Yeah.
Even if you don't like see the end of that tunnel, that's what tawakkul is all about, you know?
Yeah,
you let go of what's wrong what's wrong in the moment, what's not right. Even if I don't see the way out, I know Allah sees the way out for me.
Because as humans, we have such limited just vision of anything. I feel like any human, like, that's why istikhara is a thing too, because Allah knows everything and we don't. And that's how the dua of istikhara starts, that Allah knows everything and we don't, so Allah, please choose for us. So that's the same way. Allah already chose for you and told you, hey, stay away from these people, don't do these stuff. So you're like, I don't see how this is going to end, but deep inside I know that Allah will give me something better. Yeah.
I feel like when you lose those things, then it starts to like, starts to feel like you're missing out on like a lot of things. But honestly, like, there's this quote that says, do you cry over that which has passed? I swear if there was any good in it for you, it would have stayed.
Yes.
And I feel like that's something we can also like transition into. One more thing that I feel like a lot of people miss out on, and this I feel like is a taboo topic amongst a lot of Muslim communities, is haram relationships, boyfriends and girlfriends, etc.
Yes. And this is honestly, again, that's the thing with topics like these, generally any topic, desires are considered taboo, although we're all human and we all have desires, and that's when something becomes taboo and not talked about, it's where the problem starts. So it's important to have open conversations and discuss topics like these.
Yeah, I feel like this topic is something like, we're just told, oh, it's haram, don't even get into it, don't even think about it.
That's true.
But that's not normal, it's a normal human desire. And I feel like if you don't address that, a lot of children, especially, like a lot of kids in our youth, they know it's haram, but they don't understand why it's haram. And that's why they, go forward, get into it. And then, like, they're left hurt.
100%. And the fact that you just go into this life with like, don't do this, don't do that, and then you have, let's say you start having feelings that you don't know how to manage and you don't know how to deal with, and you don't know why or why not, and what should I do and what I shouldn't do. And that's how people end up in the worst situations ever. So I think it's important to discuss these things, and we will discuss them in a future episode. So, you know,
I feel like if we start talking about haram relationships right now, we're going to be sitting here talking about it for hours.
But we wanted to touch down on that because, yes, in Western cultures, that's all you see around you. Like, oh,
it's something that's become so normalized.
It's expected. Like, honestly, at a certain point,
yeah, it's like, you're 21. Oh, like, have you dated? Who's your boyfriend?
That's true. That's true. Well, we will discuss that later. But for now, we're going to talk about something that's more, you know, tangible for us. We're both hijabi women, and women who wear the hijab they do feel like they're missing out on a lot. And I feel like I'm talking to my hijabi sisters, and they know exactly what we're like talking about. It's like, you know, when you give someone that look, and they know exactly what they're talking about. I feel
like when you're a hijabi, you already know what struggles you're undergoing. You know what you have to sacrifice. And, like, you know, everything that's going on, like, whether it's, like, inside you, whether it's going on around you. But and I feel like that feeling of comfort that even if nobody else knows, like, you know, the struggles you're going through, Allah knows, and you'll be rewarded for that. That in itself is just, you know, you can, like, I can sleep well at night knowing that.
100%. And, like, some of the stuff, like, certain sports, you know, are not very hijab friendly. Let's say you want to go on the beach and, like, do other things that, you know, as a hijab, like, you can go to the beach as a hijabi, but, you know, like,
it's a different
experience, you know, going through life. It's just a different experience. And for me, like, I found a good way to deal with these stuff when you feel like you are missing out on something. So I have this little jar. It's just a glass mason jar, where when there's something I want to do, or there's something that I am missing out on because of being Muslim, I would simply write that down and put it in this jar. And the idea of this jar is, I know, you know, at the day of judgment, hopefully when I go to Jannah, I'm going to ask God for this jar and tell him I want everything that I wrote in this jar. Because sometimes it's just, honestly, when you sit down, you're like, it's okay, I have Jannah ahead of me. But sometimes you just want this one thing. Like, I just want to do this.
I want it now. Exactly. I don't care about later. I want it now.
And I want this. Like, I want to go to the beach, or I want to do this specific thing. And you're like, you don't want to feel like you're missing out. Well, you're not, because if I'm writing this down in my jar, and one day I'll ask Allah for it, and Allah will give it to me InShaaAllah. 1,000 times better. And I feel like that's a very nice way of, like, dealing with your desires. You see it. You see there. You see the sacrifices that you've made, and Allah always sees the sacrifices.
I feel like also the desires that you consider in this world that have been made haram. I mean, like, everything that's made haram is made haram for, like, a really good reason. You know what I mean? Even if, like, as we mentioned earlier, even if you don't see the reason why it's made haram, there's a reason that God has said no. Like, where does your opinion even come in it now?
Yeah. And also, like, the fact that, like, for example, drinking khamr is haram here, but in heaven it's not, because it doesn't have the bad side effects. Or so when you want to do something here, it's going to have bad consequences, but when you do it in Jannah, it's not. So just think of it that way, and just know that, oh, I'm not missing out on this thing now. I have my jar, I have everything, and I'll do it, but in another day, for another day.
And and that way will be much better for you in the hereafter as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to end off this episode by just saying that Allah has made you with these desires. You know, of course, it's human to, like, feel that you're missing out on things when they're all going on around you. Yeah. But it is in it what's better for you to avoid them in this world, at least. Yeah. Because, as I mentioned earlier, everything that's made haram is made haram for a reason. Yeah. It's hurtful for you. That's why it's haram. You know, that's why God has told you to stay away from it. Islam is, like, you know, that kind of like a cheat code towards life. Yeah. You stay away from the haram, even if you feel like you're missing out. You're just protecting yourself.
And honestly, I just want to say that if you have temptations, that doesn't make you a bad Muslim. And that's what, because it's a taboo topic, no one talks about it. So you feel like, oh, I have these temptations. Does that mean that I'm a bad Muslim? Does it mean that I'm a bad Muslim that I want to go drinking with my friend? It doesn't mean that you're a bad Muslim that you have these temptations. At the end of the day, Allah made this world a test. And it's a test for a reason. It's a test because if no one had temptations, then no one would have done anything wrong, and we'd all just be angels. But it is a test for a reason. And the more you struggle with that, the more the greater your reward will be, because Allah knows how hard you had to, you know, control yourself not to do this thing, but you got hasanat for that. So that doesn't make you a bad Muslim. this life is a test, and we have to always remember that.
Yeah, and I feel like as well, once you get to Jannah, when when you see Jannah around you, you're just gonna forget all the struggles you've gone through in this world, and I think that's absolutely beautiful.
That's so true. Like, and this just doesn't just stand with the when you feel like you're missing out. Any time of your life, when things get hard, just know that when Allah gets the most person that was challenged the most in life, and He just dips them in Jannah, they totally forget about any struggle. If you ask them, like, if you had a single day of struggle, they would say no, which just means that as hard as it gets, one day it will all just be gone. And I feel like you could just put that on your day-to-day life. A lot of people struggled in their past, let's say their childhood, or they've had some sort of trauma. When good days happen, you seem to forget what happened. You seem to be like, oh, I have a good life, like things are going well, and that's just
like one bad day doesn't define your entire life.
100%.
Yeah, and I feel like another important thing to remember, a mindset you can keep, is that Allah tests those whom He loves.
Absolutely.
When He tests you, it means He wants you to overcome this so He can raise your status in the next life.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that covers everything we wanted to talk about in this episode, fear of missing out and fitting in.
Yeah, so keep going out throughout your day, and do your best. And we're here, to talk about all the topics that people don't want to talk about in our ummah. Well, that's it. See you guys later.
UmmahSpeaks out.
لا تبالي فالمعالي بالتحدي لا سواه كن سعيدا كن فريدا عش بفخر في الحياة